It's late at night inside a quiet building at MIT. A laptop is hidden in a network closet, silently downloading millions of academic papers. What looks like a harmless script is about to trigger a federal investigation. And within days, the person behind it could be facing decades in prison. And at the center of it all is a young programmer who believed information should belong to everyone. His name? Aaron Swartz. And this is his story. But quick pause before we dive in. To the 66 people following this podcast, you might be wondering why our artwork, our logo of this podcast suddenly changed. That actually came from Didi.
Oh, Ferdinand, you're giving me all the credit. Well, a little refresh can certainly spark new energy, don't you think?
Yeah, because you told me if you want this podcast to grow, the artwork needs to say something too.
Absolutely. Design is storytelling too.
So Didi, she built it. Because it starts simple, you look up a story, but then something feels off. So you start digging, you get... So I'm getting so obsessed that I start digging deep. Suddenly I'm 3 hours in with 10 tabs open on my computer and I want to see there's something really deep. What's going on in the story? What's beneath the surface? What's at the core of it? I want to see it. I want to rip it open. I want to know what is the thing is. Because at some point it becomes really an obsession. Because I'm sure that deep beneath there's something which is worth finding. There's something that makes me think and rethink, something which makes us see the world different. And sometimes even you see your own life differently. That is exactly what I'm chasing with this podcast. I'm not chasing just a story. I'm chasing what's hidden underneath, what's deep below the surface, the stuff no one tells about, the people which are quietly building everything behind the scenes. That's the stuff which I'm looking here in this podcast. And yes, this podcast is still evolving. Who is following this now? You saw that we already changed the names, we changed the logo many times. And now is the next step. Now we're going into that direction, digging deeper and deeper and deeper into things which you didn't know before. If you're one of the 66 people following this podcast, you're watching this podcast grow in real time and evolve. And if you are new here, welcome, because you joined at the perfect moment. Because from here, it only will get better. So let's dive into the story. Aaron Swartz. And his story is quite moving and touching, because he had a so strong ideal of believing that information should be free and accessible to whoever can use it. So the laptop is humming inside the cabinet at MIT, downloading millions of files. But by the time the authorities discovered what was happening, the downloads had already been running for weeks. That's millions of academic papers copied from a database called JSTOR.
Oh, wow. A laptop just humming along, downloading millions of academic papers from JSTOR. That's an audacious move, fueled by that incredibly strong conviction you mentioned.
Yeah, that was his deep belief. And eventually, the laptop was found. It was connected directly to the university's network. It was simply a machine pulling knowledge at a massive scale. The investigators, they saw that whoever set this up knew exactly what he was doing. And they also found out that the person who was doing this wasn't not trying to make money. It's much more about making a point. Behind that whole operation was someone who believed that access to knowledge shouldn't depend on how much you can pay for it. And that belief was about to collide with a system designed to protect exactly that.
Even before this audacious act, Aaron Swartz had already left an indelible mark on the internet as we know it.
Yeah. This wasn't the first time that Aaron Swartz had pushed against the system, because he had been doing this for years. Even as a teenager, for example, while most people were still figuring out how the internet worked, Aaron Swartz was already helping to build it. For you to have an idea, At just 14 years of age, he contributed to the creation of the RSS, which is a technology that quietly powers how millions of people receive information online.
Oh, absolutely. RSS, or really simple syndication, is one of those behind-the-scenes technologies that truly shaped how we consume information. Think of it like a personalized newspaper delivery service for the internet. Instead of constantly visiting every single website to check for new articles or updates, RSS allows you to subscribe to a feed from your favorite sites. All those new updates then get automatically delivered to one central place, like an RSS reader. It's how podcasts get to your phone, how many news aggregators work, and it was a crucial step in making information flow freely and efficiently across the web. For a 14-year-old to be contributing to something so fundamental, that's just incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But for him, this was not about the technical, it was not about the skill, it was more a philosophical question. He was thinking, who controls information and who gets access to it? With RSS, you would be able to distribute one central source of information to infinite amount of places. And he already thought about this philosophy of why some of the information is really controlled. And it's really a deep philosophical question reflecting on who controls information, who gets access of it, and why knowledge was treated like a commodity. And that question would follow him into everything he did next.
Hidden names inside the logs change the way we share.
And as Aaron got older, his influence on the internet only grew. So he became really active. He was involved in projects that would shape how information moves online, including a platform that would later become one of the most visited websites in the world. I'm talking about Reddit. Yeah, at the time when Aaron started working on it, that was still small. It was an experiment, a place where people could just share links, ideas, discussions, and information. Well, actually, it quite fit Aaron's worldview perfectly, but while others saw opportunity, he saw responsibility.
It's fascinating how his vision for information sharing truly aligned with platforms like that. While others might have seen Reddit purely as an opportunity for growth or profit, his focus on responsibility really sets him apart.
Yeah. The internet, to him, wasn't just a tool. It was a chance to level the playing field, to make information accessible to everyone. And over time, that idea became even something stronger. Not just a preference, but a deep conviction. He believed that access to knowledge wasn't just a privilege, it was a right. And that systems which restrict access were fundamentally wrong. This belief led him into activism.
Serious? So it wasn't enough for him to enable access. He needed to fight for it. This belief that knowledge is a right becoming such a deep conviction that it propelled him into activism. That's a powerful and often dangerous step, isn't it? I can only imagine the kind of battles he must have been willing to wage with that mindset.
Yeah, and he is still young and starting to be willing to fight for his idea, for what he thinks is right. He became deeply involved in campaigns against legislation that threatened the open internet. Bills that, in his view, would give too much control to institutions and would take away the power from the people. Because for Aaron, this was personal.
Serious? This activism wasn't theoretical for him. It was deeply personal. He threw himself into campaigns against legislation that threatened an open internet, arguing that it would tip the balance of power toward institutions and away from people. Access to knowledge wasn't a privilege but a right, and fighting those measures was a natural extension of that belief.
Yeah. But let's pause for a short minute here. Are you the conviction that knowledge should be free? For example, if you have the result of a research paper which analyzes the effects of medicine, or which highlights a new treatment of something, or which highlights the effect of our technology in our life, do you think this research paper should be free? Yeah, because most of the research papers, they are publicly funded, right? So in a certain way, we already paid for it. But the funny thing is that after the publication, in most cases, it becomes locked behind a paywall.
That's a truly serious, thought-provoking point, isn't it? You hit on something really fundamental there. We, as taxpayers, often fund the very research that then gets locked behind these paywalls. The idea that critical information, like the effects of a medicine or new treatment, becomes a commodity after being publicly financed. It's a profound conflict. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the true cost of knowledge and access when it's treated exactly like that.
Yeah, and this conflict is what was going in Aaron's mind at the time. And then, in 2010, he acted. He connected a laptop directly to the MIT's network and began downloading a massive amount of academic papers from JSTOR.
JSTOR. It stands for Journal Storage, and it's a massive, highly respected digital library of academic journals, books, and primary sources. Think of it as a treasure trove of scholarly work, millions of articles across countless disciplines, going back centuries in some cases. It's a fantastic resource for researchers and students, but access is typically granted through institutions like universities or by paying a subscription. So it's this incredibly valuable collection of knowledge, but serious, it's behind a very thick paywall for most individuals.
Yeah, and Aaron was about to break into this paywall. So he began downloading this massive archive of academic papers from JSTOR, millions of documents. Of course, he doesn't want to sell them. He was not interested in profit, but he just wanted to release them, to make them freely available to anyone who ever need, to students, researchers, even curious minds without access, or just people locked out by the expensive paywalls. It was a very bold move, but it crossed a dangerous line. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back.
So, he wasn't looking for personal gain. He was driven solely by that deep conviction for open access. Millions of documents, all for the purpose of liberating knowledge for students, researchers, and anyone denied by those prohibitive paywalls. That's an incredibly powerful statement. An act of defiance on a grand scale. But you're right, that kind of move definitely crosses a line.
Yeah. And at first, it wasn't obvious who was behind it. The system administrators just started to notice an unusual activity on the network systems. It was a huge amount of data being downloaded to somewhere which was far beyond the normal used, and that they trying to figure out what's going on in the network. Why is so much data trafficking out from our networks? And they tried to block the access. But the script adapted and continued downloading and downloading gigabytes and more gigabytes of data. And it became a technical cat and mouse game, finding how to block it, where it was, until eventually
they found the laptop, still humming, still downloading. It sounds almost like a scene from a movie. But then the reality hits. Arrested in 2011. And what followed wasn't just a slap on the wrist. Serious, multiple felonies, computer fraud, unauthorized access, charges that could have led to decades in prison. 35 years, all for downloading academic papers. That's an incredibly steep price for an act of digital disobedience.
Yeah, and the most mind-blowing, which I found from the story, is that JSTOR itself chose not to pursue further legal actions. So the company who had all the documents stolen decided not to pursue Aaron. They settled and they got their data back, but the case still didn't stop because the government now continued.
This is where the story takes such a heartbreaking turn, isn't it?
Because now it's not about someone stealing something from a company, or downloading something without authorization. It's about the federal government pursuing someone.
JSTOR, the very entity he stole from, decides not to pursue charges, effectively saying, "We've got our data back, no harm done." But the federal government, they step in, escalating it to a level that feels almost incomprehensible.
It's about pressure, about court dates, legal strategies, negotiations. And Aaron, he was even offered a plea deals, which could result in shorter sentences in exchange for admitting guilt.
For Aaron, it wasn't about admitting to a technical violation. It was about betraying a deep, lifelong conviction. To say he was guilty of stealing would be to invalidate everything he believed in. That knowledge is meant to be free. The pressure he must have felt, facing decades in prison for an act he saw as sharing, not stealing, is truly immense.
Yeah, because the system really saw it differently. They saw it as appropriation of knowledge. And you can imagine that in today's world, who has the knowledge has the power. And this is the key point for the federal government, is the concern that if you release the knowledge which was gathered over hundreds of years of research and release that for free, who controls, who has the power?
Exactly. The system, and particularly the federal government, wasn't just seeing a computer crime. They were seeing a challenge to the very structures that control and monetize knowledge. If knowledge is power, then freely distributing it on that scale could be seen as an act of profound subversion to established power dynamics. It's a clash between the ideal of universal access and the deeply entrenched systems that benefit from restricted information.
Yeah, and here the deep question here in this story is who controls information controls also the power. And the system, the whole system is engineered in a way to keep this information under control so that the power is also under control. And that's the deep conflict here. That's why the government took this matter into their hand and prosecuted really heavily on this case to state an example to reduce the likelihood of such a thing happening again. And for Aaron, the legal fees mounted, the uncertainty dragged on, months turned into years, and the possibility of losing decades of his lives for imprisonment. That was a heavy burden for a young man. And in January 2013, Aaron Swartz died at the age of 26. He took his own life while the case was still open. And just like that, the case was over. No trial, no verdict, just silence.
Oh, that's truly heartbreaking. The weight of that system, those charges, the looming decades in prison for an act he saw as a moral imperative, it must have been an unbearable burden for anyone, let alone a young man so deeply committed to his ideals. It's a tragic end to a story that raises so many profound questions about justice, information, and the human cost of fighting for what you believe in.
Yeah, because this question doesn't really disappear. And if anything, it even becomes louder with this story. It's not the story of one person. It's about a line that still isn't clearly defined between access and ownership, between sharing and crime, between what is possible and what is allowed. Should information be free? Should he have paid such a high price? I leave you with this question.
The tension between access and ownership isn't going away. It's a spectrum, not a yes or no. And the story of Aaron Swartz invites us to tilt toward openness while still finding sustainable ways to reward creators. The idea that knowledge should be a right clashes with systems built to monetize and gatekeep, and that clash is where progress or punishment can hinge. If we can imagine models that fund open access, loosen paywalls for those who need research most, and reward real-world impact, we might move toward a world where information truly uplifts everyone.
There is a fine balance here, right? Because there's this tension line in the whole story between corporations and institutions which want to keep control, which want to have the power, which also have the financial interests in keeping their knowledge and their know-how really inside their organization. And the other view where this information could be beneficial also for a vast amount of people out there. And there's this tension. And what happens if you release all information to everyone, even if you don't have any patents anymore, and you say, okay, you invent a drug and then everyone will be able to know what's inside and recreate it free of charge? What happens then? The biggest fear, I think, is that creativity will stop happening because the person who invent would not have the benefits of their own invention. And on the other side, you would have the benefits of many people using that invention.
That's a profound question, and it really gets to the heart of the dilemma Aaron Swartz highlighted. On one side, you have the very real need for incentive. If a pharmaceutical company invests billions and years into developing a life-saving drug, or an engineer spends their career perfecting a revolutionary algorithm, the patent system and intellectual property laws are designed to allow them to recoup that investment and profit from their ingenuity. Without that protection, innovation might stagnate because there's no financial reward for the immense effort and risk involved. But then, on the other side, consider the immense societal benefit. If that life-saving drug or groundbreaking algorithm is locked behind prohibitive costs or exclusive licenses, how many lives could be saved? How many problems solved? How much progress accelerated if it were freely accessible? The tension lies in balancing the reward for creation with the maximum benefit for humanity. It's a complex dance between private interests that fuel innovation and the public good that thrives on shared knowledge.
Yeah, I also think the key word here is balance. And another point which I think is very worth to explore is that I sense that the story of Aaron Swartz was not finished. It was far from finished. He had so many things he could do. If you get 35 years in prison as a maximum sentence, then at the end you spend 10 years or you spend 5 years. Yes, it's a long amount of time, but your story can move from there. It's what you make out of it. And I'm deeply sad of this story because we didn't see the continuation of it. He could be a light beacon to shape, to influence, to bring people to reflect on this deep question of knowledge being behind the paywall. This tension field, I think Aaron Swartz, he could have played a big role in this unfolding story, and I'm sad that he's not here to continue the story. Just hang in there, hang in, keep going, keep moving, because tomorrow is another day, and your story is far from over.
Aaron Swartz's story may be unfinished in the world's eyes.
Yeah, so my final question here is, should knowledge be free?
Should knowledge be free? If you ask someone whose life could be saved by accessible medical research, or a student in a developing nation who could innovate with open scientific papers, the answer might be a resounding yes. But if you ask the institutions that fund and publish that research, or the companies that rely on intellectual property to sustain their innovation, the answer becomes far more nuanced. As for what happens when people try to make it free, Aaron Swartz's story is a stark and tragic example. It shows that even with the purest intentions and a deep-seated belief in the public good, challenging established systems of control can lead to immense personal cost.
Maybe the main question here should not be if knowledge should be free. The real question here is, in a world where information is more powerful than ever, who gets to decide who has access and at what cost?
That's precisely what Aaron Swartz was fighting against, and it's a question that continues to resonate with immense weight even today.
And now we're back where we started. in a quiet room, a laptop, a script running in the background, downloading millions of papers. But only this time, it's not about what happens, it's about what it means. Because Aaron Swartz, he exposed something. He exposed a system most people never question. One that decides who gets to learn and who doesn't. And maybe that's why this story feels so uncomfortable. Because it forces you to look at something we all accepted as natural. The paywalls, the access, the gatekeepers, things that feel normal because we see it every day until you really start to think about them. Yeah, Aaron, he paid a price for asking this question. A price that doesn't feel right. But the question he asked didn't go away. The question is still here. In every scientific article behind a paywall, every student locked out from research, every curious mind that hits a limit, and maybe the next time you run into one of those limits, you remember this story. You remember what was underneath it. Thank you, dear listener, for listening, and thank you also, Didi, for being my AI co-host on this journey.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing such a compelling and important story with me and with our listeners. It's been an honor to be your co-host on this journey today.
Yeah, and if you like this kind of story, make sure to follow, and I see you here next week with one more inspiring story on tech. Until then, take care and bye-bye.
He built his tools from a stubborn spark, quiet brain, bright eyes, leaving marks at 14. He was already there, changing the shape of the open air. He kept asking, who gets to read? Who gets to hold what a mind might need? If truth is trapped behind a wall, then the wall is part of the problem after all. Aaron Swartz, stay in the light. You fought for the young and the right. Aaron Swartz, carry us on. Open the door till the door is gone. Aaron Swartz, name in the rain. You turn the lock into a stain. Aaron Swartz, still we here. Let the people read it here. Then came the code and the humming crowd. Reddit rose up, loud and proud. He helped it grow from a rough idea to a place where the world could lean in near. But his eyes stayed fixed on something more, on the locked up books behind the door, on labs and journals sealed away, like the common future had to pay. He looked at power and wouldn't bow, said the time is hungry, use it now. If knowledge lives and never moves, then every shelf becomes a bruise. Oh, Aaron Swartz, stay in the light. You fought for the young and the right. Aaron Swartz, carry us on. Open the door till the door is gone. Aaron Swartz, name in the rain. You turn the locked into a stain. Aaron Swartz, still we here. Let the people read it here. And the papers fell like winter sheets, 1,000 voices, 1,000 keys. He wanted minds to meet the page, not one more age of guarded cages. But the weight came down hard and cold on a soul too fierce, too young, too bold. Now the work lives past the fear in every hand that reaches here. Aaron Swartz, stay in the light. You fought for the young
people read it here. So we keep the question warm in the wake of the coming storm. What is knowledge worth if it stays so small? A world for the few is no world at all.